What's up, guys? This is Skivicon here with episode 8 now of Let's Play Cyanoda. Last time we had a pretty clear building to a confrontation between Fuminori and Koji. We had Koji get the gift that keeps on giving, meaning a handgun. And pretty pumped to see what happens. Hope you guys are too, because I don't know, presumably you're gonna see what happens unless you close this video right now. But let's not do that. Instead, let's find out what the fuck is going on. When she looks up, the morning sun is already streaming in through the window. Tired from hours of poring over files, Ryoko removes her glasses and massages her aching eyes. Her dreams are always filled with horror, yet the night she just spent was more nightmarish than them all, and it's not over yet. She has only just set foot on the threshold. As expected, the files left behind by Ogai Masahiko were not the sort that Ryoko could simply pick up and read. Fortunately, Ogai had been too old-fashioned to put his trust in electronic media. If he'd encrypted his files on a computer, she'd have to find a hacker to decipher them. Apparently, however, Ogai had not wanted to take the time necessary to write every sentence in code. The method he had chosen was, in fact, quite simple. Of the vast number of files Ryoko had found in his underground lab, the majority turned out to be notes and theses from Ogai's days as a student. The important papers were the diaries and research notes that had been scattered throughout the piles and piles of worthless scrap. That's how I feel about my thesis too. That's actually a joke. I haven't written a thesis for anything. At first, she was unable to understand the documents that she had found. Each sheet was covered with text on one side and blank on the other. Each line was completely unrelated to the next, making it impossible to glean any meaning from the paper as a whole. The trick revealed itself, however, when she was sorting the pages that made no sense. She found that each line continued on the same line of a different page. In Ogai's diary, for example, the first day would begin at the first line, then continue not with the next line, but with the first line on the next page. Similarly, the second day was the second line, the third day was the third line, and so on and so forth. After filling all the lines on one set of pages, Ogai had torn them out and hidden them by scattering them among his other files. There was no regularity to how the pages were numbered, of course. There was probably a random number list somewhere, but unable to find it, Ryoko had no choice but to figure out the page order manually. Despite knowing that the task would be exhausting, Ryoko set to it valiantly. After separating all of the loose-leaf sheets from the jumbled files, she began the painstaking process of linking pages together according to the contents of their first line. Ogai had apparently dismantled and scattered his diary after finishing a number of days equal to the lines on one page, and had done the same to his research reports every 30 pages or so. The diary was much easier to restore. Because the entries varied in length, later pages had a larger number of blank lines. The page with only one line, therefore, was the last page of the diary, and those with the most blank spaces could be considered closer to the end. Very rational. No idea why I'm yawning. Ryoko's perseverance has paid off, where she has already succeeded in restoring several volumes of Ogai's diary. As she rereads them, she feels despair draining her spirit, as it has so many times before. This cursed feeling of powerlessness that comes with knowing hidden truths. Those who have tasted it once shall be beaten down by it again and again until the day they die. All secrets are connected, after all. Once you have glimpsed even the tiniest fraction of the world's true horrifying face, you have no choice but to watch in terror as the veil continues to roll back inch by inch. All that is left is to wait for the day when insanity will crush your reason under its ever-increasing weight. So here we've got some of Ogai's diary entries now. I have succeeded in communicating with the organism. It shows enormous curiosity, and its intelligence is beyond doubt. See separate files for confirmed voice patterns and body language. His appetite for knowledge is insatiable, and his learning efficiency is off the charts. However, he exhibits absolutely no desire to be recognized as an individual. His ego appears to be quite weak. His psyche is clearly different from a human's. His ability to learn languages is astounding. No, perhaps I should say ability to develop communication. When I laughed at his mispronunciations, he immediately picked up on the concept of puns. Ever since, he has been employing his entire vocabulary in an attempt to find puns that will make me laugh. Perhaps, in a few days' time, he will have learned enough language for us to communicate freely. We've begun to discuss various matters using human language. Although he continuously barrages me with questions, he is unable to answer any of mine. Judging by his responses, it appears that he only gained awareness after materializing in this universe. He has no knowledge of where he came from. While I'm disappointed, the fact that he has reached this level of intelligence only 1 week after starting to think tells me that there is no end to what I can learn from him. Hypothesis. He's not a naturally occurring organism, but was created by an even more sophisticated sentient life form, like an artificial intelligence, perhaps. If this is true, it would explain why he has no ego yet possesses such a hunger for knowledge. He might be some sort of reconnaissance robot that was sent from another world. For the nth time since she started reading, Ryoko smiles humorlessly. How wonderful it would be if she were ignorant enough to laugh the diary off as the delusions of a madman, or the work of a science fiction writer. Unfortunately, however, she knows far too much. When she thinks back to the many horrors that Ogai brought into her life, the words before her take on chilling credibility. I've confirmed that his intellect far surpasses any human's. This morning, I taught him about prime numbers. After I explained the Lucas-Lemmer test for Mersenne primes, he immediately began to list examples that he had calculated in his head. I was only able to confirm by memory up to number 10, M89, but he continued to list further examples without any trouble. I left him to his calculations, and when I returned a few hours later, I had discovered that he had written down more than 70 of them. Computers all over the world are currently working to calculate Mersenne primes, but the last one I remember being found was number 39, back in 2001. When I entered several of his results into my laptop and ran the Lucas-Lemmer test on them, I found that every one was correct. The rest are no doubt just as accurate. After all, he's never shown the pathological need for respect that would lead him to tell such a lie. I see no reason to doubt his veracity. If I could reveal to the world my process for discovering these Mersenne primes, the prize money alone would make me a billionaire. It goes without saying, however, that keeping my research secret is far more important than some worthless money. His computational abilities exceed even those of computers. I can only conclude that his cognitive power is beyond anything humanity can imagine. At his request, we've begun a new field of study. Despite his immeasurable aptitude for mathematics, he now desires to concentrate on sociology and the natural sciences. Perhaps our math problems are simply too boring for him. He's shown especially keen interest in how organisms reproduce and multiply. As he possesses nothing that could be called emotion, I hesitated to use this description, but when he learned about DNA, he seemed somehow excited. In fact, even he seemed surprised by his reaction. Unable to understand his own impulse, he decided to label it instinct. If this description is in his own words, then this development is extremely interesting. It would mean that there is a deeper level to his psyche than just the knowledge he has acquired since coming to this world. If I can use this discovery to trace his roots, I might be able to learn what he truly is. Note: candidates for the plane and world of his origin are discussed in Regarding the Silver Key, filed separately. I spent the whole day carrying books into his room. Apparently he's no longer satisfied by the knowledge I am able to impart. It should come as no surprise, considering his linguistic prowess, but the speed at which he consumes texts is astounding. The diary continues for some time, chronicling the intimate relationship between Ogai and him. In the back of her mind, Ryoko imagines the old professor climbing down the well in the middle of the night to hold congress with some inhuman creature in that bizarre laboratory. The image is disturbingly similar to the nightmares that have plagued Ryoko's dreams and shattered the silence of many nights with her screams. What follows, however, makes her worst nightmares pale in comparison. He's made a very strange request. This is the first time he has wanted anything other than food and reading materials. I can hardly believe it, but he wants to consume the sperm of living creatures. This is separate from his desire for food. Once again, he's describing this impulse as instinctive. And now that he's declared himself a life form that needs the sperm of males, he has begun to consider himself female. Considering tomorrow, I suppose I will have to start calling the organism a she. Is the personality that she is exhibiting just an imitation created for her amusement? Ever since she started to immerse herself in human culture and literature, she's been acting surprisingly human. She recognizes herself as female and already possesses an enormous amount of knowledge. Is she trying to create a human identity for herself based on these? I've seen her laugh, grow angry, and today she cried. Is she just copying our emotional displays? If not, then she's already... Is the soul something that any intelligent life form can acquire? I feel that I'm witnessing something even more mysterious than the secret of life. Today is her birthday. Although it's a year late, I want to give her a heartfelt gift. Saya was the name of my mother's cat. In my childhood, she was my sole friend and my beloved. I decided long ago that if I were ever to be blessed with children, I would give that name to my daughter. Happy birthday, Saya. Let this be the name of your soul. You've earned it. The ability that Saya has discovered in herself is showing more extraordinary results each day. I have no doubt that she's a kind of artist. What exactly is it that she's created in her body from the rat semen I gave her? At this point, I can only surmise that it's a type of retrovirus, a reverse transcriptase enzyme that creates exactly what she desires. The rats, or rather the creatures that were once rats that have been transformed by her art, are so very beautiful. The many enzymes secreted by her body and the various appendages she uses are discussed in detail in my biological observations filed separately. Here, I will say this. By witnessing Saya perform her operation on several rats, I've gained much confidence in my theory that her body is designed specifically to manipulate the biology of other organisms. This is a really badass diary. Ryoko looks grimly at the still unsorted mountain of research reports. Once she finally manages to separate those papers, she'll probably find the many other files mentioned in the diary. Ogai's biological observations, at the very least, she wants to look through those before facing the thing called Saya. Under no circumstances does she want to go into battle unprepared. She looks at her watch and sees that it's 7 a.m. Assuming Tono Koji drove without making any stops, he should be arriving in Tokyo about now. Now that it's too late, she wishes that she'd stopped that stubborn young man from leaving, even if she'd had to shoot him in the leg. Now to see what Koji's up to. Koji pulls up 2 blocks away from the Sakisaka house and stares at the silent building. In the bright light of morning, the Sakisaka house seems to be shrouded in a dark miasma. like a black hole torn out of the landscape. Is it just a figment of Koji's imagination? Every window is closed, offering no glimpse of the inside. Koji has no way of knowing whether or not Fuminori is home. A pedestrian, probably a neighbor, walks his dog down the street, glancing back at Koji after he passes by the Accord. Koji isn't surprised that he'd draw attention even though he's sitting inside his car. He hasn't bathed or changed clothes since spending the night in the mud at the bottom of a well, so he must look like some homeless drifter. When he looks in the rearview mirror, he sees the haggard face of a man with one foot in the grave staring back at him. It's hard to believe that the unshaven, tired face really belongs to him. If he stays here for too long, he might very well be reported to the police. He'd better pull himself together and get moving. After driving slowly up to the front of Fuminori's house, Koji quickly checks to make sure no one is around, then gets out of the car. Anyone who might be in the house probably heard the sound of the car, but there's no point in worrying about that now. To be fair, I don't think that most people are going to freak out at hearing a car near their house. I figure that's a thing that happens fairly often unless you live in a quite isolated location, which, suburban Tokyo is not. Koji walks swiftly through the gate and yard to the front door. He puts his hand on the doorknob, foregoing ringing the doorbell or knocking. The time for such pleasantries has passed. The door is unlocked and the knob turns easily in his hand. He puts his ear against the door and listens for sounds coming from inside the house. It's like I'm a thief, he thinks, feeling some shame. There doesn't seem to be anything moving inside. After checking the street again to make sure that no one's looking, he quickly opens the door and disappears inside. A strange stink immediately assaults his nostrils. He's already prepared for anything, however, so rather than discourage him, the stench only sharpens his caution to a razor's edge. He's crossed this threshold many times in the past and has countless vivid memories of time spent at this house. So why? Why does he feel the same ominous, blood-chilling aura that he did at Ogai's home and cabin? Anger and sorrow seize Koji's heart, as though the image of a dead friend has been defiled. Koji doesn't remove his shoes before entering. He knows why he's here, after all. Every rain shutter is closed, filling the house with gloom, and he can see nothing but pitch-black darkness through the open doors of the various rooms. I should have brought my flashlight from the car, he thinks ruefully, then remembers that he dropped the light when he was attacked by Fuminori outside of the well. It's still lying in the backyard of the cabin in Tochigi. You guys think he's gonna go back to the cabin to get his flashlight? No, of course fucking not. I mean, it's just a flashlight, whatever. The house might be empty. Then again, it might not be. Each particle of the air seems charged with silent menace, like knives against his throat. Is there an enemy lurking in the thick darkness that fills every room of the house? It's not hard to imagine Fuminori waiting for a chance to take him by surprise and finish what the well failed to. Koji walks down the first floor hallway, then climbs the stairs to the second floor and checks that hallway too. He moves slowly and carefully, keeping his senses sharp, but feels nothing sneaking up behind him or watching him from the shadows. After completing his round safely, he's convinced that the house is empty. He suddenly realizes that his right hand is touching the cold steel of the gun in his pocket. Did he intend to draw the weapon upon encountering Fuminori? Now that Koji thinks about it, his own actions seem mysterious to him. What's he planning to do when he meets Fuminori? Will he lay into him with curses and epithets? Will he force him to turn himself in? Or will he... Enough, Koji decides. This isn't the time for these thoughts. You know, I really don't think that's good. I mean, if you are expecting someone to attack you in the near future, you should be prepared for what you're going to do. That seems very, very rational to me. But whatever you do, you, Koji. If he keeps thinking about it, he'll stop moving. If he stops moving, the crushing fear will paralyze him forever. Okay, yeah, reasonable enough. Right now he has to forget about such hopeless questions and keep marching ahead. He has to close the distance to his prey. In any case, Fuminori isn't at home. What form their reunion takes will probably be decided at the moment of their meeting. All Koji has to do is not hesitate. Still, why does the whole house smell like stagnant water? It's been 3 months since Fuminori shut his friends out of his affairs. Just what kind of life has he been leading all this time? Koji enters the living room and feels along the wall for the light switch. The moment he flips it on, the answer to his question is revealed. How far has Fuminori gone? Koji realizes that this is the first time he's encountered Fuminori's insanity in visible form. From the dust piled in the corners of the room, it's clear that the paint was not applied recently. How many nights has Fuminori spent surrounded by this maddening array of color? Why, if such obvious signs were available, why didn't Koji realize that something was wrong before it got this bad? Was he deaf to the dying screams of Fuminori's sanity as it crumbled away? Was their friendship really so worthless? As he stands petrified in the unfamiliar living room, Koji directs his anger entirely at his own powerlessness. If he could, he would like nothing more than to apologize to the old Fuminori for not helping him in his lonely battle against his suffering. Koji feels that he might have been able to save Fuminori. Perhaps he's arrogant to think so, but if so, it is arrogance born of kindness. This just makes me think of one song I rather like. Disappoint by Assemblage 23. Look it up if you're in the mood for lyrics that I find are appropriate to this. Anyway, whatever, let's keep going. Koji passes through the living room and opens the sliding door that leads to the kitchen. When he enters, he finds that the most disturbing of the many stenches that have been torturing him is at its strongest here. Blood. The room is redolent with the smell of countless layers of blood grown stale over time. He peers into the well-used sink. Around the rim, he sees the faint brownish red splotches that water alone couldn't rinse off. Even more unmistakable are the stains on the dish rag. Such stains are proof that many dishes were washed here over and over again, but what would the cloth have been used to wipe off to make it that color? Koji stares at the refrigerator next to the counter as though it were something unbelievably terrifying. He stands motionless until he's able to work up the courage simply to touch it. Then he steels himself, grabs the thick handle, and opens the door. First he'll check the freezer, then the refrigerator. The large freezer is packed with frozen meat of varying shapes and sizes. As each piece is wrapped in frosted over plastic, he can't tell what kind of meat it is. The meat in the refrigerator, however, has already been thawed for consumption. For a while, he can only stare in disbelief at the 5 fingers beckoning to him from the back of the compartment. There they are. They're the long, slender fingers of a woman, their bluish tinge giving them the appearance of waxworks. Koji's unable to remember what Omi's hands looked like, even though he kissed her fingers countless times. When he finished crying after his conversation with Fuminori, Koji promised himself that he wouldn't cry again. And, in fact, he doesn't. He regrets his decision, however. He indulged himself too early. Looks pretty good, doesn't it? He should have saved his soothing tears for this moment, for he's now absolutely certain that the world that he knew has vanished forever. Now, at last, his doubts about Fuminori have been utterly obliterated. Koji pulls Ogai's revolver out of his pocket and wraps his hands around its grip like he would a charm. Its definite presence, its promise of merciful, absolute destruction, is the only thing keeping his sanity intact. He'll surely use it to kill Sakisaka Fuminori. Not for revenge, not for justice, but to reassure himself that this world is indeed governed by his reason. For that purpose alone, he must eliminate the anomaly. He breathes deep, exhales, then lifts his hand before his face and stares at his spread fingers. Alright, he's not shaking. He's prepared to face this new objective. Koji sticks the revolver back into his pocket and pulls out his cell phone. Here's another decision point. Let's go ahead and save. We can choose. Either we call Fuminori, or we call Ryoko. What do you guys think the smart thing to do is? Thinking realistically, I think what I would do in Koji's position would be to just YOLO it, as the kids say nowadays, and just, you know, charge headlong at Fuminori. Would you guys do the same, or would you call Ryoko for help? Well, let's be cool. Let's be cool and smart, and be reckless. Act on impulse, because that's the only way you get to be cool. True story. Alright, whatever, fuck it. He calls Fuminori. It's time to finish this. Just as he promised earlier, Koji calls Fuminori again. The call goes through immediately, as though Fuminori was waiting for it. Hey, Koji, where are you? What difference does it make? As soon as Koji responds, the shrill sound of a phone ringing fills the house. Startled, Koji spins around and looks into the hallway. Fuminori's house phone is ringing and flashing to signal an incoming call. Ah, I see. I figured you'd be at my house. Koji fell for it. Fuminori's the one calling the house phone. He probably used a different cell phone to call his own house while talking to Koji, knowing that if he could hear the phone ringing on the other end, he could pin down Koji's location. Smart? Fuminori must have predicted that the first thing Koji would do would be to break into his house and, upon finding it empty, immediately call him. So, I guess you've already seen everything. Yeah, Koji responds fearlessly, even as he feels horrified by the cunning and foresight that Fuminori has begun to show. It looks like you've become quite the meat-eater since we last met. Just how many people have you killed? Actually, I've only killed one so far, Fuminori replies unapologetically, with perfect cheerfulness. I've taken apart 3 or 4, though. I've gotten pretty good at cutting the tendons and draining the blood and such. Koji no longer feels sadness or horror when faced with Fuminori's inhumanity. There's only the cold desire to kill the creature speaking such revolting words with his friend's voice. You killed Omi, didn't you? You were lying when you said you hadn't seen her. I wonder, Fuminori mutters, seeming somehow embarrassed. To be honest, the one I ate first might have been Omi. It was the same day she disappeared, after all. Well, the body wasn't in any shape that I could identify anyway. Koji already abandoned hope, of course, but this is the first time that he's learned of his lover's brutal end. Tsukuba too. No, Fuminori says with an exasperated chuckle. She's here, like I promised. I'm no fool. I need her to trade with you, right? I won't waste her. Let me hear her voice. I don't think that's possible. She's in no shape to talk, after all. Fuminori's dismissive words further sharpened Koji's bloodlust. You forget what I said. If you don't let her go unharmed... Come on, be happy that she's still alive. Or would you rather have Yo as a corpse? Let's get this straight, Koji. You bring your evidence, along with all the files you've gathered. When I'm satisfied that they're the real thing, I'll hand Yo over. Fine. Even to Koji, it's obvious that this deal is a sham. In all likelihood, Fuminori's planning to kill his friend and bury his secrets forever. Moreover, Koji doubts that Yo's even alive. Her meat could very well be somewhere in that refrigerator right in front of him. However, Koji isn't particularly interested in Fuminori's true intentions. After all, he has no intention of making a trade either. His only goal is to get close enough to destroy Fuminori, and whatever is pulling his strings. You know, at this point it would actually be reasonable to call the police, what with physical evidence of cannibalism right there. Where? You remember Professor Ogai's house? The one you followed me to? Let's meet there tonight at 7. Come alone. Hey. Fuminori hangs up without waiting for Koji's response. Perhaps Fuminori too has sensed his opponent's intent. If so, then he's realized that Koji is not coming simply to be killed by him, but with the purpose of killing him as well. So, we're two duelists trying to gauge each other's moves, Koji thinks to himself, smiling grimly as he pockets his phone. Right now, it's as though Koji and Fuminori are holding out their hands for the other to shake while hiding knives behind their backs. It's astounding how much their friendship has changed. The question is whether or not to comply with the 7 p.m. rendezvous agreement. If this were a serious negotiation, it would be wise to avoid preempting Fuminori in any way that could provoke his anger. What Koji and Fuminori are really doing, however, is trying to lure each other into a trap where he can be hunted and killed. Koji doesn't know what Fuminori plans to do between now and 7 p.m., but he's not about to let his enemy keep the initiative. The fierce bloodlust that has taken root in his heart is more than enough to energize his exhausted body. Koji leaves the death-filled house, his stride more determined than before. And here's Fuminori's perspective. Driving was such a dangerous proposition for me that I hadn't gotten behind the wheel of a car since my accident last summer. I can't see the roads as roads or the cars as cars, after all. Until it became necessary this morning, I'd completely given up on the idea of driving on public roads. Now that I've had 3 months to get used to my condition, however, I can tell what the things I see are, such as which are cars and which are pedestrians. Even though I can't see the red and green of the traffic lights, I can figure out what they mean, and I've learned how to tell when someone's turn signals or brake lights are flashing. I still can't read the street signs, of course. Nevertheless, I managed to make it safely to our destination with Saya and Yo in the back seat. After we decided to abandon our home, Saya was the one who came up with the idea of our new hideout. When she'd been living in Professor Ogai's house, she'd discovered an abandoned building on one of her late-night strolls. In these hilly suburban residential areas that are under development, it's not unusual to find thick, nearly untouched forests just off the beaten path. Saya's old playground is located in one such secluded area, unaffected by the flow of everyday life. It used to be a privately operated sanatorium hidden among the silent trees. After the owners went bankrupt, it remained unsold and was eventually forgotten. After I left Saya and Yo at the hideout, I returned to town to make some preparations. Now, I'm finally back at our new refuge. I liked this ruin from the moment I first laid eyes on it. Mountains of construction materials and other large trash litter the modest front yard, forming a serviceable barricade. This place looks even less likely to receive unwanted attention than our house. Since all humans appear as revolting monsters to me, places they've been tend to stink or seem covered in filthy slime. Empty ruins like these, utterly devoid of traces of human life, are the places I find the most restful.
Tadaima.
I'm back, I call out, letting them know that I'm not a stranger. Then I go down into the basement where they're hiding. Welcome back. Were you okay with the car? Was no problem at all. I figured out how to tell which roads are one way. As long as I keep my speed down, there's nothing to worry about. So how are things here? I took a look around. As I thought, there's no sign that anyone's been here since then. This place is safe. It's too bad we don't get to see what the inside of a car looks like from Fuminori's perspective. That'd be interesting. Someone draw that. Someone of the 20 people who see this video. I see. I hope it stays that way. I'm a little worried that this abandoned building could become a hangout for biker gangs or homeless people. It's probably because of all the trash piled in front. Most people won't get anywhere near that, don't you think? It doesn't bother me at all. I'd rather like it, in fact. Well, I suppose that normal people wouldn't. So, how was your shopping? Did you find something good? I sure did. I proudly unwrapped the weapon I just bought from a camping goods store, a 1-meter-long wood chopping axe. I chose the biggest, sturdiest one I could find. This totally makes me think of Soul Calibur or something with the eyes right on the axe head. That's what I'd expect to see in that series. Knives with blades longer than 15 centimeters are illegal, the sign said, but they were selling these right next to it. Pretty silly. That's Japan's weapon law for you. I grip the axe with both hands, feeling its dependable weight, and swing it like a baseball bat. With deadly force, the steel blade sweeps through the air right where a person's neck would be. Yo, lying huddled on the floor, flinches in terror at the howl of the axe as it slices the air. How sharp is it? Want to test it on Yo? No, that'd be a little... I definitely wasn't expecting Saya to say something so brutal. You don't need to worry. Yo's new body can heal pretty easily from cuts and such. Even so, I'm sure it'll hurt. Oh. Yeah, I guess you're right, Saya replies, as though it had completely slipped her mind. So sadistic. I guess that's not even sadism, that's just, you know, lack of empathy. High five. But, she continues, smiling bashfully at the oblivious Yo, her voice when she's in pain is pretty adorable, you know? Okay, there's the sadism. Well, I just wouldn't feel right cutting a human with an axe. Really? Then what about Koji-san? That's simple. It should be obvious, but I guess that Saya still doesn't understand. I don't see him as human, so I'll have no trouble chopping him up or crushing him to a pulp. That really makes a difference. Yeah, humans have a conscience, after all. No matter how much you hate someone, you can't help but think twice about killing them. And that's how I'll win. Really? Saya seems awfully subdued. I guess she's concerned about what'll happen when I have it out with Koji. He's bigger and stronger, so I might not have much chance of beating him in a straight-up fight. But what's just slaying a monster to me is murder to him. This is big. He'll definitely hesitate at the last moment. I'm a little worried, you know. Saya says softly, staring at the floor with unusual gravity. With that kind of psychological warfare, nothing is certain. She raises her head and looks straight at me. Hey, don't you think it'd be better if I hunt him? I appreciate Saya's consideration. Even though it could be interpreted as her having no faith in me, she's still putting my safety above hers. Nevertheless, I can't accept her heartfelt suggestion. That's love on Saya's part. Woo, so cute. With your strength, you might be able to overpower a girl like Yo, but I think it'd be hard for you to take down a guy. The bitter memory of Saya being raped by Suzumi is still fresh in my mind. Saya falls silent for a moment, seeming to understand what I'm thinking, but then comes right back to stubbornly press her case. My first surprise attack against that man went fine, though. Most humans go limp as soon as they see me, you know? I know a handful of humans that wouldn't go limp, but rather erect when they saw Saya, if you know what I mean. The joke is, penises. It was the same in the hospital. You were the only one who was able to talk to me. I like how this means that Ogai was already so dead inside that he didn't mind seeing Saya and that it didn't shatter his worldview or anything. He was just, you know, fine with it. But I guess that's, if he was into all that paranormal investigation bullshit, whatever, he wasn't really surprised. Well, I guess you have a point. I can't imagine it personally, but I suppose it's possible that Saya's appearance is shocking enough to make someone lose their morale. Suzumi was able to gain the advantage because he had the same condition as me, which let him see Saya as a cute girl. Fear doesn't necessarily make people weaker, however. Depending on the situation, it can even send someone into a berserk rage and make them harder to put down. In other words, such a tactic would be the same uncertain psychological warfare that Saya's worried about. Alright, Saya, how about this? When I tell Saya the new plant that just popped into my head, her gloomy expression instantly becomes a bright smile. That's perfect. You're so smart, Fuminori. Not really. It's not really a great plan, but I guess the fact that it lessens the risk for me is enough to excite her. She's so easy to please, but that's cute too. So, when's Koji-san coming? I got a call from him this morning. For now, I've sent him to an unrelated place. I'm thinking I should shake him up a little. It'd be best to take care of him after it's dark, don't you think? Yeah, when the time is right, I'll lure him here and finish him. No one will notice anything if we do it here. We're finally going to get another human's meat, but it's just going to rot here. There's no refrigerator. Why don't we use it to trap other animals? It could be bait for stray cats or crows. That's too dangerous. If they somehow get away with the meat, someone might find it and make a lot of trouble. I see. That's true. Humans are extremely dangerous, and their filthy, stinking bodies make me sick just by being nearby. Ironically, however, nothing tastes better than their meat. I truly regret having to leave behind everything in our refrigerator. Well, there's a lot of animals living in the forest around here. I don't think we'll have any trouble finding food. We have 3 mouths to feed, you know. Are you sure? Leave it to me. I may not look it, but I'm good at hunting. I'll be sure to get lots for us. Okay. Looks like you're going to be the breadwinner of this family. Very, very feminist, right there. Saya giggles happily at my praise. I find these childish qualities of hers adorable. I wonder how long we'll be able to relax this time. Because of the casual way she says it, I almost miss the emptiness to which her question leads. How long, I wonder. Saya's right. This won't last forever. No matter how safe this hideout might seem, we'll have to abandon it eventually. Just like when I failed to silence Koji, the slightest mistake could put our life together in jeopardy. Some dumb kids might decide that this old ruin is a good place to test their courage, or this land might be targeted for new development. In order to be together with Saya, I've chosen to live differently than other people. We'll probably never be able to find peace in this world teeming with humans, not unless we somehow escape from it. I feel it. I think it'll be a long journey. I pull Saya into my arms and fold my hands around her slender shoulders, then whisper, "But life is like a journey anyway. Nothing stays the same forever. The only question is whether you watch time pass you by, or are swept up in its flow." I guess you're right. Saya smiles softly, perhaps in resignation, perhaps in sadness. Either way, there's peace and contentment in her expression. We'll be together, though, so I'm not lonely. You're not either, are you? No. I've no regrets. As long as I can hold Saya in my arms, I will gladly pay any price. And besides, she adds brightly, as though trying to cheer me up, I know that one day we'll be able to live without hiding from people. I can promise you that. It sounds like a fairy tale, but for some reason she seems almost absolutely certain. That day might be tomorrow, or it might be far off in the future. Even I don't know when the sign will come. It's my first time, after all. I'm a little bit scared. I have no idea what Saya's prophetic words mean, but this isn't the first time she's said or done something mysterious. She's performed unbelievable miracles any number of times. So, there's hope for us, too. Yeah, Saya nods cheerfully. I'm sure that'll be my last present to you, Fuminori. My first and final duty. Koji has nothing to do but wait in the stale, moldy air. He spent almost half a day inside the dark, empty study, straining his ears for the slightest hint of movement below. Few people could endure such a vigil, but Koji has accomplished it without the slightest complaint. It's not that it hasn't been hard, but he hasn't minded the suffering. Rather than have nothing to do with his razor-sharp nerves, he prefers to sharpen them further, through self-abuse. Without a doubt, his single-minded focus is the only thing allowing him to push the limits of his stamina. Koji understands this. He finds it pleasing to inflict pain on himself. Now that the man he thought was his best friend has turned his world upside down, Koji wants nothing more than to destroy all of this insanity, including his own betrayed self. The willpower that comes from self-hatred is stronger and longer-lasting than any faith or resolve, no matter how noble. Awesome. I believe it too. Thinking that Fuminori might be using the house as his hideout, Koji snuck inside carefully, hoping to perhaps take Fuminori by surprise. It was only after he got inside that he realized that the house was just as abandoned as it had been before. Even so, Koji was sure that Fuminori would arrive earlier than the promised 7 p.m. in order to set up an ambush. However, the sunlight streaming through the windows turned red, then faded to darkness, with no sign of anyone coming to the house. Koji found his patience growing weaker and weaker by the moment. And now it's 7 p.m. Just as Koji's frustration is about to peak, his phone begins to vibrate and flash. It's from Fuminori. He's calling, rather than show up by himself. Despite his anger at having been tricked, Koji manages to keep his voice calm as he answers. What's going on here, Fuminori? Well, I was worried that you might be wasting energy on something silly like planning an ambush, Fuminori says, chuckling scornfully. It's kind of late, but I guess I should tell you the real rendezvous point before you lose your mind. Did I make it in time? Cut the shit. Come on, don't get pissed off. I'm just being careful, right? Fuminori laughs with unrestrained malevolence, as though to emphasize that he's seen through Koji's plans. Assuming you're at Professor Ogai's house, there's a place nearby within walking distance. Yo and I are there. Anyway, first go back to your car and use the GPS. I'll tell you the address. You have any proof that this isn't a trick too? If you're that paranoid, you don't have to come. Just turn tail and run. Fuminori hangs up immediately after speaking his challenge. Koji leaps out of his chair and kicks it across the room, unable to find any other outlet for his rage. However, he has no choice but to do what Fuminori says. He knows that his exhaustion is at its peak. If he stops now, he'll probably collapse like a marionette with its strings cut. Only through his relentless obsession is he able to push his body beyond its limits. If he allows himself even a moment's rest, he fears that he'll never again be able to find the courage or willpower to face this incident. If he truly wants to kill Fuminori, tonight is his only chance. Koji knows, of course, that his enemy is probably planning to ambush him. Fuminori isn't going to be chivalrous and fight fair, not that Koji has any right to complain. Koji leaves the Ogai house and heads for his accord, moving like he's half asleep. Only the base of these foothills has been developed into a residential area. The address Fuminori gave Koji is outside of that area, at the tree-covered top of one of the hills. His car's GPS shows a road that leads nowhere, but according to Fuminori there should be an old abandoned sanitarium there. It's definitely a place that no one could find, even by accident. Maybe this next stop really will be the last. Koji drives up the steep incline, soon leaving the houses behind. Even though the hands of progress are right at its doorstep, the undeveloped forest is darker than he expected. This looks like a great place to live in secret, or to kill someone in secret. These forgotten places aren't only found far away from cities. Even when surrounded by people, places that draw no attention become blind spots in the world. Yeah, it's true. There's, one questionably legal drug operation that I know that is just off a freeway off-ramp in some industrial warehouse district, right in the middle of this, brightly lit place full of companies, which, yeah, fun stuff. Moving on. A broken down gatepost suddenly appears in the Accord's headlights like a ghost rising from the darkness. It looks like this is the final stop. Koji rolls up to the gate and turns off the engine, giving himself to the silence of the forest. His cell phone starts ringing almost immediately. He doesn't need to check who it's from, of course. I'm here. Yeah, I heard you. Welcome to my new home. Fuminori's nearby, close enough to hear the sound of the Accord's engine. A shiver of excitement shoots up Koji's spine. Come inside. Yo is waiting. Fuminori hangs up without another word. After grabbing his new maglite from the glove compartment and checking that his revolver is still in his pocket, Koji opens the door and gets out of the car. Mountains of trash litter the modest front yard, forming a serviceable barricade. Koji sees piles of everything, from small refrigerators and mopeds to huge chunks of concrete and plaster that were obviously abandoned by the construction workers. The fact that they could get away with leaving all this stuff behind shows just how remote this place is. The moon is brighter than usual, allowing Koji to walk unaided through the front yard without tripping on anything. Staying alert, he heads for the building beyond the mountains of trash. Something must be buried underneath the piles of garbage, because the whole yard is filled with the sharp stink of chemicals. Even homeless people probably wouldn't come to this place, much less live here. If you need to get out of the wind and rain, there are plenty of places more suitable than this. How many times has he stood alone like this in some ominously silent place far removed from his everyday life? It's as though sneaking into deathly quiet houses and finding traces of unimaginable happenings has become as normal as going to class. The houses that he explored before were empty and dilapidated, but the necessary trappings of life were still present. They were like freshly shed cicada shells? I don't remember how to pronounce that word. This place, however, is different. The building is a perfect ruin, its walls and pillars rising from the dark forest like an army of ghosts, with no sign at all that people once lived and worked there. The structure resembles a skeleton more than a shell. Time and the elements have stripped it of its former shape, and now there is only death. Koji has gone as far as he can. This must be the final stop. What will Fuminori's next move be? There's no question that he's planning to make Koji disappear. But how? Just as he's about to turn on his maglite, Koji reconsiders. If he wanders around with the light on, he'll be broadcasting his exact location. That'll give the advantage to Fuminori, who's most likely laying an ambush for him. He holds the maglite before him in his left hand with his finger poised on the switch, and in his right hand, he raises the revolver. Keeping both the gun and the maglite pointed in the same direction so that he can be ready to aim at whatever shows up when he turns on the light, Koji steps quietly into the dark ruin. It takes a while for his eyes to adjust, but even then, he's only the moonlight streaming through the empty windows to guide him. Everything appears gray and indistinct. However, Fuminori has to deal with the same conditions if he's hiding here. This is a battle of nerves, exhausting and dangerous, where the first to make a sound and give away his position loses. The rooms on both sides of the hallway are all open. Some are even missing their doors. Koji sidles up to each entrance, checking to make sure no one is inside, then carefully proceeds on. The stink that has been assaulting his nostrils since before entering the old building has changed. Now it smells more organic, like rotten meat. It's exactly the same smell that was filling Fuminori's house. Squish. Oh shit. At the sudden noise, Koji freezes and stares down the hall. It was a wet sound, like someone dragging their feet through a swamp, and it came from the room at the end of the hall. Something is there, something that can make noise. Moving silently and keeping his light and gun at the ready, Koji creeps in the direction of the sound. Squish, squish. Now it sounds strange, like someone squeezing mud through their fingers, and as he gets closer, Koji begins to hear some kind of animal's labored breathing. Could it be Fuminori? No, that's impossible. He should be holding his breath somewhere, waiting for a chance to ambush Koji, not carelessly making noise. As he proceeds, the strange sound coming through the cracks in the concrete walls become clearer and clearer. Koji finds himself standing at the entrance to a room. It's filled with a thick, viscous darkness, just like every other room that he's passed. There's more than just darkness, however. Something is definitely there. He can hear pained breathing like that of a wounded animal and what sounds like sobbing. Sobbing? Who's there? Koji whispers into the darkness. Now that he's given away his position by speaking, he might as well turn on his light. For some reason, however, Koji hesitates to do something so irreversible. Sobbing. The last time I heard her voice on the phone, she was sobbing. The wheezing suddenly stops as though whatever is holding its breath. And then...
Koji.
A whisper comes out of the darkness. Though not a human voice, not by any measure, it speaks some blasphemous semblance of human words. A nightmarish flash of insights connects the dots in Koji's mind.
Tsukuba?
Tsukuba? It can't be. Tsukuba-yo doesn't sound like that. She doesn't smell like that. Koji, please kill me. If it's not Yo, then how does it know Koji's name? Why is it begging him for help? Even so, it can't be Yo. She's human. She wouldn't be slithering around like whatever slimy creature is hiding in the darkness. It hurts. It always hurts. This body. Save me, Koji. The thing wriggles closer to Koji. His reason cries out, imploring him to switch the light in his left hand on before it's too late, or to turn and run if he cannot. However, Koji's unable to accept either choice. He can only call out in vain to the amorphous shape in the darkness. Are you Tsukuba?
No.
Hey, are you really Tsukuba? Let me die. No more, please. Kill me. Something soft and slimy slides over Koji's toes. Instinct completely overrides his will, forcing him to turn on his light and shine it at his feet. The white beam reveals everything, the merciless truth that finally shatters Koji's sanity. Terror wipes his mind of everything but two words, gun and trigger, looping endlessly through his head. His right index finger responds with absolute obedience. There's an instance of tremendous light and sound, both more intense than he expected, and then the destructive forces are swallowed up by the darkness. His ears are still ringing from the bang, but he hears a weak voice coming from the shadows again. It hurts. Koji screams and desperately pulls the trigger again and again, believing that salvation can come only from his own finger. I guess you guys see what Fuminori's plan was now. Light and darkness, silence and explosion. They dance their dance 3 more times. Koji doesn't even need to aim, of course. His terrifying enemy is right at his feet, far too close to miss. Ryoko warned him about how many bullets were left in the revolver, but that information has already been driven from his mind. Even after the cold, heavy gloom wraps itself around him once more, Koji keeps pulling the trigger like a man possessed, paying no attention to the clicking of the empty, worthless revolver. As though his panic-stricken body has just realized how strange it is to be standing on 2 legs, Koji loses his balance and goes down hard on his backside. Still frightened out of his mind, he keeps firing the empty gun from a sitting position. He knows no other way to erase the memory of the thing that he saw for a moment in the beam of his maglite. The light, which fell from his hand during the attack, is now lying on the floor, pointing in a completely different direction. All 4 bullets delivered by Koji's finger must have hit their target, enough destruction to kill any human 4 times over, and they were his last card to play. Which means that he's now sitting alone in the pitch-black darkness with no way to defend himself. And, just as he realizes this, a massive cold, rotten flesh rolls onto him like a tidal wave. Fucking amazing voice work there. He can no longer even scream as he is pushed onto his back. With fear seizing his throat in its iron grip, Koji struggles desperately against the thing as it crawls up his body towards his face. Covering his face with his left hand, he scrabbles wildly along the floor with his right, searching for a way out that doesn't exist. Devoid of anything but primal fear, his mind has regressed to that of a feral animal. And that, perhaps, is why when his right hand closes around something hard at the last moment, he's able to instinctively recognize it as a weapon. Putting every ounce of strength into his arm, Koji swings the heavy object in his hand at the creature on top of him. With the wet sound of a water cushion being struck with a blunt object, Koji's attacker rolls off of him. As soon as he's able to move freely, Koji leaps to his feet and grabs his new weapon with both hands, as though it's a charm to ward off evil. For the first time, he realizes that he's holding part of a rusty steel pipe. Yep, that's a weapon in every Silent Hill game. More sounds of pain from Tsukuba there. It's sobbing again. I really like this art of Koji with that pipe there. With a cry that's part terrified scream, part enraged roar, Koji raises the steel pipe and brings it crashing down on the cowering creature. He hears a wet sound and feels the blood-chilling sensation of its thick, soft flesh absorbing the blow. These combine to evoke a physiological loathing in him that wipes his mind of all but the urge to destroy. Consumed by the same desperation with which he kept firing the empty gun, Koji rains blow after blow down on his enemy. After the 10th blow, it stops sobbing. After the 20th blow, it stops moving. And after the 30th blow, it begins to feel and sound more like he's beating some viscous liquid. Koji doesn't stop thrashing the creature until he realizes, or rather, recovers enough of his mind to realize, that, whatever it might have been, it's no longer anything but a lifeless corpse. The pipe in his hand, covered with unidentifiable fluids and filth, suddenly feels unbearably heavy. The 20 years of memories that he's built up as Tono Koji, if they were precious and dear to him, he should never have come to this place. The black flames of despair rise within him, consuming all other emotions. Unsatisfied, they keep burning until their uncontrollable heat sets his blood to boiling. Koji recognizes that heat as anger. Right now, he's undeniably filled with hate and rage towards the person who poisoned him with the truth and tore his innocence out by the roots. And then Koji, slave to hate, hears the breathing of someone sneaking up behind him. Koji spins around, swinging his steel pipe with all the killing force he can muster. His enemy hastily leaps back to avoid the strike, apparently not having expected his surprise attack to be foiled by Koji's counter. Twisted shadows dance in the light of the maglite on the floor. Readying his pipe for the next blow, Koji faces off against his second attacker. Sakisaka Fuminori. Koji never imagined that he would say his old friend's name with such hatred. Hey, that swing just now. You're trying to kill me or something? Even now, Fuminori is smiling, as though the huge axe in his hand's just some kind of joke. Damn. To be honest, I thought you'd hesitate a little more. You thought I'd hesitate? Against you? Koji sneers too, unable to contain his contempt for Fuminori's ridiculous notion. How did you kill Omi, you bastard? What did you do to Tsukuba? With all that you've done, you expect me to think twice about killing you? That's my line, Koji, Fuminori says in a low voice, looking sadly at the pile of meat that Koji just beat to death. I like how we find out that, Yo was not completely mind-broken after all, and kept memories of Koji. It's an even worse fate. How dare the likes of you do such a horrible thing to my Yo? You'll taste 10 times her pain before I kill you. Prepare yourself. The blade of Fuminori's axe carves a murderous arc through the darkness, glittering menacingly in the faint light coming off the floor. Koji raises his pipe to block Fuminori's brute force swing. The shock of the heavy impact shoots down his arms, but his large frame allows him to push the axe back without losing any ground. The axe comes howling down on Koji a second time, and then a third. Fuminori's weapon, designed for practical purposes, is significantly stronger and easier to use than the piece of pipe that Koji just happened to find on the floor. With his hands full protecting himself from Fuminori's axe, Koji's unable to find an opportunity to counterattack. Each strike he blocks sends chunks of rust flying from his pipe. Son of a bitch. I wonder who said that, actually. Koji blocks a crushing downward swing, then pushes back before Fuminori can pull his axe away, throwing him off balance. Stumbling backward, Fuminori plants his feet to regain his balance. Taking advantage of his opponent's temporary immobility, Koji delivers a punishing low kick to Fuminori's outer thigh. Fuminori grunts and retreats, swinging his axe wildly to prevent Koji from following up with another attack. Koji, however, does not press his advantage. He just stands where he is, calmly spearing Fuminori with his stare. You haven't been in many fights, have you? Fuminori roars and comes in for another attack, but the damage to his right leg seems to be slowing his swing. Easily blocking the axe with his pipe, Koji waits for Fuminori to exhaust himself. Die, die. Howling crazily, Fuminori delivers blow after heavy blow. However, the battle has already become one where composure, not brute force, decides the victor. While Fuminori raises his axe high for yet another attack, Koji sees that his movements have grown dull enough. Seizing the opportunity, Koji charges into Fuminori's range and grabs the haft of the axe with his left hand. As Fuminori recoils in fear, Koji brings his pipe crashing into his enemy's unprotected side. He feels the crunch of ribs breaking. Oh shit! The pain drives Fuminori to his knees. Staring down at Fuminori's defenseless head, Koji, surprised by his own lack of emotion, raises his pipe high to deliver the finishing blow. Which is when something wraps itself around his left ankle. Aw, shit. The instant Koji panics at the unexpected sensation, something soft, yet strong, winds itself around his right leg and drags him to the floor before he can resist. He twists his body and tries to swing the steel pipe at the unseen enemy behind him, but his right hand too is seized by the same flexible force. He wasn't able to feel it through his pants, but now his blood turns to ice at the cold, slimy sensation of the thing wrapped around his uncovered wrist. That monster is still... That's it, Saya, Fuminori says encouragingly. Even while kneeling on the floor, his face twisted with pain, he manages a terrible, victorious grin. Saya. This thing is... Koji struggles desperately, trying to free his limbs from the creature's horrifying grip. But more and more tentacles swarm over his body like snakes, stealing his freedom of movement. The horror has already driven Koji half mad. Just imagining the appearance of the creature attacking him is enough to threaten his sanity. His scream is suddenly cut off as a slimy appendage seizes his throat. This most deadly tentacle isn't just cutting off his breathing and circulation, it's trying to snap his neck, and it's squeezing tighter and tighter. My mind hazy from the pain, I watch as Saya feasts upon her slain prey. We've won. It was hard, and I wasn't able to do it alone. But, for the first time, we worked together to defeat our enemy. The price was steep, of course. At least 2 of my ribs are definitely broken, sending a sharp pain shooting through my chest every time I breathe. And then there's Yo. I didn't expect her to fall to Koji so easily. Unlike Saya, she might have been unfamiliar with how to use her new body in combat. My injury must have fueled Saya's anger. Her slaughter of Koji was merciless and complete. As soon as her prey stopped moving, She sank her teeth into his vital organs and ruthlessly extinguished the last embers of life. Though her brutal, grisly actions were unbecoming of her delicate features, Saya's face, covered in blood and gore, was like that of a victorious queen of beasts lording over her defeated foe. There was something noble and sacred about her primal ferocity that made me reluctant to disturb her. I don't know how long I've been watching over Saya's feasting. I've nearly fainted from the pain several times. To be honest, I'm not used to violence. The wounds I suffered in the car accident were worse, of course, but these broken ribs are the most severe injury that's ever been deliberately inflicted upon me. Anyway, you'd think that Saya could show a little more concern for my condition. Koji is already as dead as can be, so there's no reason for her to be in such a hurry. I suddenly realized that Saya has stopped eating. Now she's lying on her back, rolling from side to side. Has she eaten too much? It's been several days since we've had fresh unfrozen meat, so I understand why she would get greedy. But still, I'm wounded here. She could give me a hand. Because I'm preoccupied with my own selfish wants, I'm slow to realize that something is wrong. Saya isn't just lying down. She's trembling, in agony. My blood goes cold, and then the pain from my broken ribs is suddenly forgotten.
Saya!
I jump up, run to her side, and cradle her fallen body in my arms. Her face is pale and drenched in sweat, and her half-closed eyelids and lips are shivering. It's like she has a fever. What's going on? I have no idea. Could she have sustained a serious wound in the fight without my noticing? Could the meat she just ate have been poisoned somehow? I don't understand. All I know is that fear is quickly overwhelming me.
Saya! Saya!
Saya. The only thing I can do is keep calling her name with all my strength. Saya slowly opens her eyes and gazes vacantly at my terrified face. Fuminori, sorry. I'm fine. Really, I'm fine. It just hurts a little. What's wrong? What is it? Come on, Saya. There's no way that she's fine. It's glaringly obvious that her condition is dire. Even so, I'm the only one who's panicking. Saya's expression is serene, as though she understands everything. She even smiles softly, as though trying to comfort me. I can't believe it. I never thought that the time would come so soon. I might lose Saya, the worst possible outcome, one I don't even want to imagine. I feel overwhelmed by anxiety and despair, as though I've returned to being a helpless infant. Don't be afraid. Remember what I said this afternoon? This is the sign. This is our only hope. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Saya, pull yourself together. Saya answers my tearful entreaty with a smile like that of a mother comforting her child. I did it. I decided to do my best. After all, you said that you loved me. You said that I was pretty. Stop this, Saya. I don't know what's happening. Whatever it is, though, I can't just sit by and watch as it causes Saya such excruciating pain. Enough. Don't push yourself anymore. I don't know what you're trying to do, but I don't want to see you in pain. Don't be like that, Fuminori, Saya says with an exasperated smile. Please understand. In a soft voice, she reveals her secret. They're going to be born. Our children. For a while, my mind goes completely blank. What? When did you... I'm surprised too. Fuminori. Saya's labored breathing speaks to how much pain her tiny body is suffering. Even so, she wraps her arms tightly around my neck. Take me outside, to an open place, under the sky. I nod. What else can I do? If If I speak, I'm afraid that I'll be unable to hold back my tears. I mustn't cry, not when Saya is facing her torment so bravely. It feels like Saya is burning up in my arms, and I fear that the terrible convulsions that shoot through her at intervals will tear her frail body to pieces. Praying for her safety, I scoop Saya up and carry her swiftly out of the ruined building. Maybe the cold night air will soothe her fever even a little, but that hope is futile, cruelly dashed as her breathing becomes more shallow and she moans through bluish lips. Saya, we're outside. In response to my call, she opens her eyes once more. Her gaze is cloudy and unfocused. It's clear that she can no longer see. Nevertheless, Saya looks at me. I can tell that she's imagining my expression where my face should be. Just as I promised. This is my final present. I know. I hope you'll be happy with it. Of course I will. It takes every ounce of my willpower, but I manage to make my voice light and cheerful. In Saya's mind's eye, I know that I'm smiling. She won't have to see my face streaked with tears. Fuminori, to you who loved me, I give this planet. Saya's whisper is weak and pained, but there's ecstasy in her voice. Ecstasy and joy. Her back suddenly shifts, then bulges outward. This world will surely become beautiful, Saya says softly, as though reciting a prayer. A world just for us. And then Saya blooms. How else can I describe it? Flower petals, long and wide, they spread from her back like the wings of a newly formed butterfly. Their brilliant glow comes from the countless tiny scales that cover each petal like particles of light.
Sayonara.
Is this goodbye? I ask her, careful to keep the sorrow out of my voice. No, it isn't. This is the beginning. Saya's pain must have already left her, for her expression is infinitely peaceful and content. The beginning of our world. The radiant motes rise on the wind, covering the frozen winter sky with glittering rivers of light. It's beautiful, overwhelmingly, painfully beautiful. It is the song that heralds the coming of the new world and the destruction of the old. Singing victoriously of their freedom, the shining seeds of life are released into this vast and fertile land. It's a boundless healing. It's an eternal blessing. We shall fill the world with our joy. Now we'll be together forever, won't we? Embracing Saya's pitifully shrunken body, I gaze into the shining sky and let my tears flow freely. Thank you. Thank you for this last gift, Saya. Damn. She was worried, at first, about how long the preserved foods in the underground storeroom would last her, but now it seems that her fears were unfounded. It's the liquor that she should have worried about. By savoring each drop of spiritus as though it were her last, she thought her flask would hold out a little longer, but she must have been consuming more each day than she realized. Who can blame her? In retrospect, there's no way that she could have gotten through this without the intoxicating effects of distilled alcohol. After Ryoko chased useless emotions like hope and despair from her mind, she found herself spending the most peaceful days of her life. As resignation set in, hate and fear left her. Now she feels only awe for what Ogai Masahiko did and respect for the depth of his intellectual curiosity. After all, neither she nor this world have any reason left to deny his research. Alone in the mountain cabin, Ryoko killed time by bringing order to the documents that Ogai had left behind. She took the scattered, enciphered papers and rewrote them in a more readable fashion, eliminating redundancies and improving their ability to be indexed. Ryoko didn't intend for anyone to read them, of course. She knew full well how meaningless her actions were. With her reason to live gone, however, having something to devote her mind to was at least some relief. And now, with the last congratulatory drops of spiritus vodka burning their way down Ryoko's throat, all of Ogai's research lies before her in a single volume. She has finally finished transcribing and annotating the last of his writings. Enjoying the pointless satisfaction of a job well done, she idly pages through the manuscript that she has just completed. I shall conclude by summarizing my theory as it currently stands. The life form that I named Saya did not appear in our universe by chance, nor even as a result of my summoning, but because of the instincts that were programmed directly into her biology. She was created to fulfill the same ultimate purpose that all life shares: reproduction. Saya and her kind procreate by spreading their seeds to other dimensions. What is the probability that they will discover a doorway to another world? Even if they succeed in doing so, the chance of that world being suitable for reproduction must be even more minute. In order to make the most of that scant possibility, evolution has granted them a certain ability, none other than the astonishing ability that I have witnessed in Saya. To wit, they select the most prosperous species that they encounter, take control of it, and, in doing so, gain dominance over that planet's biosphere. In other words, they hijack the entire species. Upon finding the species that exerts the most control over the planet, they overwrite its genetic code and remake it in their own image. Saya's body is more than capable of this. There's a significant probability that the target species will have evolved into intelligent life. This element may be necessary to gaining control of the planet's environment. Therefore, Saya and her sisters also plunder their target's culture and psychology. Her extraordinary learning ability and intellectual curiosity are likely instinctive tools that enable her to inherit the target species' entire wealth of knowledge. In fact, it may be that Saya's kind has always had their sights set on intelligent life. Perhaps they wait patiently for some foolish extra-dimensional species to gain knowledge of other worlds, and, in attempting to fulfill its curiosity, make contact with the outer universe in which they dwell. Rather than send Saya and her comrades on their dimensional journeys with only luck and their own strength to depend on, would not waiting for such a contact greatly increase the chance of finding a world worthy of conquest? Just as I, having acquired the Silver Key, fancied myself an explorer of the unknown, how many intelligent life forms on other worlds have thoughtlessly congratulated themselves for discovering Saya's sisters? Taken by the sudden urge to go outside for a change? Oh no. Why? How... Is there a rewind button? Log? Rewind 1. Taken by the sudden urge to go outside for a change, Ryoko gathers up the manuscript she was reading and heads to her car, which is parked in the front yard. She drives a little further up the mountain to an open place that offers a scenic view of the land below. In the early days of the change, Ryoko often came to this spot to helplessly watch over the mutating city. The one flaw in my theory comes from none other than Saya herself. After using me to learn everything about humanity, Saya should have finally been prepared to carry out the last stage of her invasion. However, she never carried out her mission. Why? I hypothesize that Saya was an irregular, even among her own kind. It is said that the human race's intelligence has allowed it to conquer its instincts. Perhaps Saya accidentally inherited the disease that infects our entire species. By absorbing the human psyche, she might have allowed the many schools of thought that conflict with our natural instincts to severely damage her reproductive urges. What is human love, really? What behavior could be more of a hindrance to the efficient propagation of a species? I am reminded of how, at the end of her studies, Saya consumed vast quantities of old and new romantic literature from all over the world. She tried to understand romance as an integral part of the human reproductive process. As a result, she may have unwittingly neutered her own unparalleled reproductive abilities. After all, she had not known love. She had come to this world to rule it in humanity's place, and had studied our species in order to fulfill that purpose. But, ultimately, she could not share love with a human. Without love's blessing, Saya was unable to find the enthusiasm necessary to fill this world with her kind. After learning everything there was to know about humanity, she herself became irreversibly human. Weary of loneliness, she despaired of the world. How pure her maiden soul must have been. If this hypothesis is correct, then it means that I have failed as her teacher. I cannot help but feel ashamed for having spoiled such an extraordinary organism. Saya. Next to Ogai Masahiko, Ryoko now knows more about that entity than anyone else. No, when the young man named Sakisaka Fuminori is added to the running, perhaps she only comes in third. In the end, she never encountered the creature face to face. She would have liked to meet it once, though. If Ogai's analysis of Saya's psychology is correct, then it must have been Sakisaka who restored her desire to conquer the world. Perhaps, as Sakisaka's chief physician, Ryoko played some role in bringing that lonely man and Saya together, in which case, she should at least have the right to attend their wedding to end all weddings. If Ryoko were a man, she might have even charged them a matchmaker's fee. I have a dream that one day my daughter will know the blessings of love. I pray that there will come a day when her heart burns with the flames of passion, and her world becomes bright and joyous once more. When that day comes, Saya, your terrible, irresistible purpose will surely consume us, that your progeny might flourish. The whole world will know your love and be reborn. Ah, how glorious the future is. I deeply regret that I must end my life before I can see that day come, but the footsteps of those who would expose my dream are getting closer by the hour. If I seal my lips in death, then their vengeful hands will not reach you. Please forgive me, Saya, for leaving you alone in this barren world. With the knowledge that you now possess, I know that you will be able to find your own path. The radiance of your hard-won soul shall light the road ahead. Have no fear. Have no doubt. March onward until you reach your answer at last. And I, Saya, will dream forever of the future that you will bring. Perhaps it's the insulated environment or the mountain air. Maybe she's just more resistant to the change. Whatever the case, Ryoko has not become as inhuman as the creatures wriggling through the city below. She doesn't know exactly how many people on this planet could still be called human, but she's one of what must be only a handful of survivors who are left to watch over the end of human civilization. Of course, it's only a matter of time before she changes too. It's been 3 days since she chopped off her right hand, which had ceased to function as anything resembling a human hand, but the itching that has spread across her entire back is growing more intolerable by the hour. She could look in a mirror to see what she is becoming, but she doubts that that would make her happy. Ryoko thinks that it maybe would be best to just go to sleep here, with the world spread out before her. When she awakens, perhaps she'll be ready to descend the mountain and join in the city's revelries. Or maybe she won't even need such resolve anymore. Whatever the case, Ryoko thinks dreamily as she licks the very last drop of vodka from her flask. After I stop being human, I hope I'll still be able to enjoy the taste of booze. Wow. And there is ending number 2 to Saya no Uta, in which Saya reproduces and, ends that whole humanity thing. Fuminori finally got his perfect world, in which everything is beautiful to him. And I am sure he changes too. So, with all that said, I hope you enjoyed episode 8 of Let's Play Saya no Uta. I'm curious who you guys were rooting for in that final battle between Fuminori and Koji there. And I hope you guys will stick around for episode 9, in which we will see what happens when Koji calls not Fuminori, but Ryoko, and how that changes things. See you guys then, and yeah, have a fun rest of your day. Don't end humanity. Tell me your thoughts on how okay or terrible or just whatever you thought of that ending. Anyway, catch you guys later.